So I wanted to discuss about the evolution of microprocessors. The evolution of microprocessors will mostly uh, be observed that there is an increase. There will always be an increase in the number of transistors from the point in which a microprocessor was made, the first microprocessor by Intel in 1971. From that point, there was an increase in the number of transistors, an increase in clock speed, an increase in clock speed, and an increase in bytes, increase in bytes. In that is a microprocessor, a 4-bit, an 8-bit, 16-bit, in that order. So when it comes to an increase in the number of transistors, there was something called the Morse law. Some person who said that transistors will double, I think per decade or something of the sort. And that has happened because at one given time we had transistors that came in thousands, hundreds of thousands. Then we went to millions, billions, etc. So when it comes to evolution of microprocessors, I first wanted to focus on the microprocessor itself. And the first one was in 1971. So it was the 404 in 1971, and it was a 4-bit. It was a 4-bit microprocessor, and the clock speed, I might not cover for all of them. And then the clock speed and the number of transistors. So for the 404 microprocessor, it was invented in 1971. It was a 4-bit, and then the clock speed was at 740 kilohertz. And then the number of transistors were just 2300 transistors. So after that, they saw that the microprocessor was very successful. So they decided to come up with the 804. But at the same time, that this was by Intel, there were other people who had developed a 4-bit microprocessor. So those people were people like Rockwell. Well, they are not people, they are companies. Rockwell International, and their 4-bit microprocessor was called PPS4. PPS4. Then we had Toshiba, and then they had the T3472. So these are the other 4-bit microprocessors. So I was talking about Intel. Intel decided, let's make another microcontroller, but what can we improve? Remember, I said that with microprocessors, what you're seeing increasing is the number of bits. So this company decided, let's go with 8 bits, because I said the bits will increase. So the next one was an 8-bit, and it was in 1972, and they called it the 8008 Intel microprocessor. That was the next thing that happened. And one of the important things that you shall encounter is this one was made using PMOS technology. PMOS technology means it used a pin channel MOSFET. So that is a major distinction. Up to this point, they were using PMOS technology. That is because when Intel were moving next to the next, this is Intel 8880 in 1973, and to the Intel 885 in 1975, what was something that happened? They started using something called NMOS technology. This means it is an N-channel MOSFET. So other popular microprocessors at the time was the Zilog 780, that was in 1976. Then we have the Z808. Then we have the MC 6800 in 1978, MC 6809 in 1978, and the one that went to space. So the one that went to space was developed in 1976, and it was an RCA 1802. That was the name of the chip. So that was among the most important things to note. So after that, we can also remember that the first multi-chip that was 16-bit was developed by the National Semiconductors IMP. IMP 16, and this was in 1973. Then we had others like the TMS 9900, and now finally we had the Intel 886, which I'm going to try and cover in this playlist. It was the first 16-bit, if you follow here, it was the first 16-bit microprocessor, and this was the first microprocessor that could run an operating system. So you can also note that this could run an operating system. And that was a major distinction. Then there came a time and they decided, let's try and do a 32-bit. So for the 32-bit, they were fast enough to run. No, I'm not given an example here, but for the 32-bit, what you're going to know is they're the fast enough to run modern desktops. And the first single chip was the Belmark 32A. The first single chip for the 32-bit, first single chip was the Belmark 32A. And then by Intel, by Intel, we had the IAPX 432, and this was popular in 1985. And then we had the Intel 486, the Pentium 2 to Pentium 4. Then we had AMD K5, AMD K6, AMD K7. Then we had the Motorola 62020, 62030, 68. Sorry, this is what I'm reading. So we had the Motorola 62020, 62030, 62040. And then we had from the National Semiconductors, we had 32032, 32332, and the Zilog 7800. Then we proceed to that 64-bit. The 64-bit was like AMD 64, Intel 8664, Sans UltraPack. So you see, there was a need to continue progressing. Like so, we went to the 64-bit, and that is like the general evolution of microprocessors in the best way I could explain. So to try and capture the increase in clock speeds, I'll try to find the ones I have. For example, we have the Intel 885. The clock speed of its microprocessors was 3 to 5 megahertz. As you can see, there was an increase because at this point we had 740 kilohertz. This time we have 3 to 5 megahertz of clock speed. Then another point I can capture clock speed is from the Intel 886. So we had a 5 to 10 megahertz when it comes to clock speed. As you can see, there was another increase. Another clock speed I can get was from the Motorola 6800, not from the same company, 68,000, sorry, not from the same company, but you can clearly see that the clock speed increased from 4 to 16.67 megahertz. From there, we can go to the 32-bit processors. Do not have a point of reference. And then we had like the Intel Pentium 4, which was also a 32-bit microprocessor. The Intel Pentium 4 with a clock speed of 3 gigahertz. So as you can see, the clock speeds continue increasing. So we had 3 kilohertz, then we proceeded to megahertz, and now gigahertz. Because I said one of the things we want to capture in the evolution of microprocessors, it is the clock speed that will continue increases, the architecture in terms of the bits that can be handled, and the number of transistors, because we started with thousands of transistors, then we went to hundreds of thousands of transistors, and currently we are at billions. So we had billions, then went to millions. So what I'm trying to say is, you see, we first started with the Intel Intel 404, which had 2,300 transistors. Then we proceeded to the 886, 8008, in that order. So from this point, we went to hundreds of thousands of transistors, hundreds of thousands. Now this was in thousands. Then from hundreds of thousands, we went to millions. Then, of course, hundreds of millions. We had hundreds of millions. Then we went to billions. And that is where we are now. Because I did not clearly capture the how transistors were increasing. Because that is the key distinction I noticed. So, this is transistors. Thank you.